busy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's not good in some ways, but it's nice to have a little break.
Yeah.
Because summer like just kicks our butt, you know, and then need a breather. Take a break.
Yeah.
I'm glad that people can come and relax
Yeah.
and not have to worry about it. So,
Nice. When is the hill gonna open up?
after this week, I don't know. I think next week it's supposed to be colder and rain a little
Okay.
more. But whatever pack they had like 8 inches. And they definitely lost that at the ski area in the last couple days. So
Okay.
I don't think they're gonna open for a while.
Oh, no.
I think the last time they opened, the latest they opened was the 20th of December, and that was
Because
in
last year they opened right before
2014.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Good evening, it's 6 p.m. Call the meeting to order. And I'd like to begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Let's the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next is approval of agenda. Any changes to the agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve agenda is written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And I will make a note that Jason is absent and excused. Very much excused, very busy in Skagit County. So as the equipment director for the county road department, there's a lot going on there. So we're very pleased to have our new student reps, but first we have to I'm also very pleased to have I'd already expressed this to you, but I am very pleased that both Brennan and Danielle were willing to serve another term as director. You both have done a great job and look forward to continued service. So we'll start with the oath of office for director, and I'll start with Danielle.
Yeah.
I, Danielle Gray,
I, Danielle Gray,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of Director, District 1
of Director, District 1
of Mount Baker School District,
of Mount Baker School District,
number 507,
number 507,
in and for the County of Whatcom,
for the County of Whatcom,
in and for
the County of Whatcom,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Next for you, Brenna. I know I've got to say Rob, right?
It's Ray.
Ray. I, Brenna Ray,
I, Brenna Ray,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of Director, District 4
of Director, District 4
of Mount Baker School District,
of Mount Baker School District,
number 507,
number 507,
in and for the County of Whatcom,
in and for the County of Whatcom,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability. Thank you.
So next, we have Gabriella. Teacher can come around and decide that.
You have to decide if you're gonna swear or affirm. We got one swear, one affirm.
I think I swear enough.
I, Gabriella Ruiz Santana,
I, Gabriela Ruiz Santana,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the State of Washington,
of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of the Office of Student Representative
of the Office of Student Representative
of Mount Baker School District,
of Mount Baker School District,
number 507,
number 507,
in and for the County of Whatcom,
in for the County of Whatcom,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and the best of my ability.
You're welcome. I, Lita Corrado,
I, Lita Corrado,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of the Office of Student Representative
of the Office of Student Representative
of Mount Baker School District,
of Mount Baker School District,
number 507,
number 507,
in and for the County of Whatcom,
in and for the County of Whatcom,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability.
Did you folks get a chance for a picture? By the way, welcome to our meeting. We're very pleased to have you. Okay. So next up are annual procedures. First of all, a call for nominations for president of the board.
I nominate Ruth Piper Hoyt for board president.
Second.
Any other nominations? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
I guess I'll say aye. Okay.
Well, at least you agree.
Next
Thank you
is,
for doing that job, by the way. It's a hard
Yeah.
job.
Thank you, Ruth.
next is call for nominations for vice president of the board.
I'd like to nominate Brenna.
Ray.
Great.
Second.
Any other nominations? There aren't anyone left to nominate unless you just handed it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And then designation of legislative representative, did you do some?
I thought a lot about it, and because I did apply for the leadership WASDA, and I won't know if I'm in that until January. And I feel that if I do get that, then I will not have a lot of time. But I also feel that I would like to have that before I take on this role, because I'm not.
Well,
100% sure.
I think that would, if you wanted to do ledge rep, that would really put you ahead in terms of,
Yeah.
of the background to do so.
So I think if I could put it off for another year, I would appreciate that. if you were willing to do it, I'd
Yeah.
like to nominate.
This is a designation as opposed to an election for both LIDS and WIA representatives, so I am willing to serve again, but it's up if that's, I just wanted to check in with you.
Yeah, and then I would like, as the year goes, maybe I can, follow you along.
Yeah, I think
go on some
if
other
you
things.
could attend things ahead of time, that would make
Yeah.
an excellent transition.
Yeah, I'd be
So
up for that.
I would like that too. I think it would be good to do that.
Okay.
So designation of WIA representative.
I'd like to do it, even though I've been in the minority on some of the issues related to it. They
Well, we
can
need all the
kick me out.
voices in there,
To
so.
be what, but,
You've been in the minority on a very minority of issues.
Right.
So that means
Yeah.
you're the majority most of the time.
yeah.
So, and I think you've done well in that position, so
I'm
I
happy to
appreciate
do it.
that.
We'd like to have you go.
So we will designate that then. So we get both of those, Tammy, for the designations.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, and then we have no one signed up for public comments. Anyone in the audience wish to make comments? Thank you. And district information, good of the order.
Well, I have a couple slides that I'm going to share in just a moment, but I think first it's important to acknowledge the weather and the flooding concerns that have really taken a hold of our community and our county over the last couple of days. We're still deciding whether or not school will be in session here tomorrow. In fact, as soon as this meeting is over, I'll be meeting with Suzanne Wooden and Shannon to just talk about kind of what are the current road conditions. It's looking good right now for school, but we want to make sure that we're taking in that big picture. And there is a county-wide kind of emergency management meeting that's also happening tonight that Suzanne is attending, and so I'll have information from that before we make the official call. But our thoughts and our extreme care really goes out to some of our neighboring communities that are suffering tenfold right now, and it's going to be a few days before things start looking up for them. So from that, I do have some good news to share. This is information from Coach Lepp about our football team, just some of their accomplishments this season. I've heard from many students just how good the entire school feels about just the accomplishments. That when we have this kind of success, it spills over into a lot of different areas. So we had a number of students who made the all-team conference, and then their overall record was 10-2. And I know they're looking forward to coming out even stronger next year. And then more recently, our FFA AgMech team had a competition. I believe it was last week, or was it just this last Monday?
I think it was this last one.
Yeah. And so we had 18 students participate, 13 schools overall, and just a really good showing from Mount Baker. And I know this is a very strong source of pride for the community as a whole in terms of how we are preparing students for real careers when they get out of school. So it was really good news to share. And that's it for good of the order. Great.
Thank you. So for information from the board, so I don't know that we prepared you for this, but we, in general, at least for future meetings, we would like you to each bring your own information to the board, and we can talk more about how to go about it and some of the things you might bring, but I'm kind of hitting you cold tonight with not having asked you in advance. So what I'll do is in normal discussion of issues, what our plan for procedure would be, the board would hold a discussion on, like whether it's an action item or the different things that we hold discussions on. And then after the board discussion is completed, then I will ask you two as student reps if you would like to weigh in on that particular issue. So that would be the way in prior to the board voting on that issue. For information from the board, my standard practice is to go around the room, and so I think I will continue with that standard practice. I don't think there's any need for you to come last on that one. So that's what I'll do. I'll start with Ed tonight, and sometimes I switch around. So and so we'll
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things I've been thinking about was the intersection here at Mitchell, and I know we've been talking about it, and then there was another accident recently between two students where the cars were totaled, and luckily no one was really hurt, but I think we're going to be talking about that more, maybe taking some more actions to do what we can. So I'm looking forward to that. Just something that's on my mind. Welcome to our new student rep. Glad to have you. Looking forward to getting some ideas and new energy into the board. So that'll be great. Welcome. Yeah, that's it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went to WASDA, and I have like kind of, I went over my notes and sort of made like a list of all the little things that I kind of thought about and learned about and all that stuff. And so I'm going to share that with the board and Jessica, and I'll do that. I don't know that you'll get my writing, but it's fine. Just a lot of really cool things. I spent most of my time actually going to sessions about student representatives. So I got to spend a lot of time with students, which was really cool, and kind of learning about how they, how things work at in their district. And I got some really good ideas and some really good feedback from them. Another thing that we did, Jessica, Danielle, and I were able to talk about superintendent evaluation, which the mid-year evaluation is due at the end of January. So we kind of were talking about sort of looking at the priorities of and the standards. So the standards that we were thinking would be the meaningful engagement with the community and families, board communication and collaboration, and then operations and management, mostly focusing on like the fiscal financial aspects of that. So that would mean we would be looking at 3 standards that we would I mean, it's there, but evaluating Jessica on standards 6, 7, and 8. So I don't know if you guys wanted to do like the whole thing, or if you're okay with focusing on three topics for the mid-year evaluation and then going further. Does that sound okay?
Does that kind of line up with what we were talking about previously?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I will send out the evaluation and the framework, and then Jessica has made some notes and kind of annotated the framework themes to correspond with her entry plan. And so then I think if we can, I'll send those out to you tomorrow. And then if we can kind of look over that on the break, and then the first meeting in January, we would have an executive session to go over and then fill this all out together, and then present it at the second one and try to get the final evaluation done before the end of January.
Okay.
If that
I'm
works.
guessing you've been part of this. You guys have been talking about this.
Yeah, we had a 2-hour drive to talk about
Okay.
it. So.
Great.
And so if that works for you still, that sounds great. So, and then so I'll send that out. So keep an eye on that in your inbox.
Well, thank you for your willingness to take that on.
Danielle, help me.
I think that's a good, I like the approach.
Yeah, I think that will be good. And then focus on something else for the rest. And then we have the end of the year evaluation too. So, but those seem to be the 3 main things that we were really asking for. in the beginning, so might as well focus on that. Okay.
So,
You're welcome.
Lita, did you have any comments you'd like to make?
I mean, I'll go.
I think
I'll
Gabby had
say
a better
something.
grip on it than-
Yeah, so starting off, obviously in the interviews, we already kind of had an idea of how we wanted to go about this. I have talked to the principal, to the counselors, to people in the office, we meet with these kids every single day, kind of trying to figure out what is the best way to take this. I've worked with these guys to create an email that students can contact us with. So we're kind of getting that ball rolling and it's gone really well. So I hope we get a lot of good feedback.
Good feedback, some good ideas,
Some good
and
ideas, yeah.
hopefully next time more information we can share with
More-
you
yeah,
guys.
next time we'll have a good amount of information. Super excited to hear. Thank you guys.
Thank you. And you?
I have a couple of comments also about the WASDA conference that we went to. And I wanted to just note that we kind of, as a group, targeted what sessions that we wanted to look at to make sure that they were aligned with the priorities that the board is going to be focusing on in the near future. So we went to a lot of sessions about how to support our new student representatives. And I went with Brenna to a great session where current student representatives sort of modeled the format for how they solicit feedback from their peers. And one of the things that they emphasized that really stood out to me is that they have these, almost sort of like a town hall format where they have students come, they bribe them with food. They said food is very important.
Yeah, I said that a lot.
And then they'll put an issue that the board might be considering in front of that group of students. Like, let's say we were going to be looking at a dress code policy or something like that, that would absolutely impact students. Then they might put the language of a draft out in front of students and say, what do you think? And then they would like pass a baton and let each person have a moment to say their piece, not like an active debate, but just a way of gathering that feedback. And then those student reps take notes and bring that feedback, whether it's all in agreement or if there's, different viewpoints, they bring that back to the board. And I thought that that was really helpful model for us to see how they did it. And it was really fun because the student representatives in the room did not call on us old fogies in the room. They were really focused on engaging with other students. And it was really cool to see that energy and that voice. And my hope is that in the future, if you are able to be able to come to that conference and connect with those other student representatives around the state, because it's so exciting to see that energy and their ideas are so impressive and they're so professional in their knowledge and training of each other, more so than I think we'll be able to do in some ways, but obviously we're here to support you and make your service on the board as pleasant and exciting, right, and meaningful. So that was something I wanted to point out that I got from WASDA. And another piece that was really exciting to me, I went to a session that was looking at tracking post-secondary data, so college level or after high school success. And instead of framing our success as an institution on graduation rates, they looked out at student success 5 years down the road after graduation and said, what are the indicators in high school that translate to success 5 years after high school? And it was a really interesting set of data, and I could talk about it for way too long, but I would just say that I'm going to be trying to share those thoughts with the board and with Jessica and anybody who wants to talk with me about it, just to start thinking about what's our metric for defining success, especially as we're talking about our strategic plan. Is it to just get kids a diploma, or is it to set them on a path that's going to help them in life? And so some of those ways that we can measure that and look at that were really meaningful to me. And we've got some good models from other school districts around the state who are already doing that measurement, and could be meaningful to us to look at when we do strategic planning. I think I'll make that all I have to say for board comment, except for that my heart is really heavy tonight because of all that's been going on in the county and our neighboring districts with Nooksack Valley. I saw a really heartbreaking picture today, the semi truck with water over the hood of the semi truck parked not far from Nooksack Valley High School. So, you know, a lot of our neighboring districts that we have agreements with and play in our sports are struggling tonight. And so they're heavy on my heart tonight. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. And so for this month, with Jessica and Gabrielle, we attended the OSBI binding conditions meeting last month, actually, which went smoothly. We're continuing with our progress, and so I think that's, you know, we have to meet for technical reasons, but it's good to have that continued progress. WASDA annual conference, besides legislative issues, it did some approaches to board leadership, which was worthwhile. I presented, I did a presentation myself on trust lands, and attended a session on strategic planning process, which we're right in the middle of that process. So it's very useful for us. And then also kind of the board role of board understanding with artificial intelligence. I know Danielle's way ahead of me on that, but it's I think it's important to keep up with that. So that's good. At this last, let's see, well, this month's Board of Natural Resources, I was able to speak, which they're doing a lottery system now. So 2 months in a row, I've been number 4. So if I was a gambler, I would buy state lottery tickets because I usually don't win that. So, and then, you know, advocating for school revenue and the importance of harvesting older forests, and which are what our district depends on for our revenue. I had a chance to speak with Superintendent Rechtel afterwards. He's one of the members of the board, and both on his role there on the board, as well as sort of his take and fear on federal funding. So and then also met with 2 other board members from the Board of Natural Resources afterwards to get their thoughts and exchange ideas on the next sustainable harvest calculation. So school finance town hall planning. So last year, parents at Blaine put on a town hall on school finance with all of our local legislators. It was quite well attended by members of the public, and then students from 3 or 4 districts in the county, as well as superintendents and a couple of board members. And so the same group of parents are putting on the same format of town hall for right now, probably January 6th is what we're a Tuesday. And both Jessica and I met with the parents who are planning the meeting, and I think we'll both participate, and then we will be looking for one student speaker from Mount Baker. So be thinking about that, and I'll let Jessica, you can kind of round up a volunteer for the student speaker, but that would be.
I might see if we can have 2 or 3 come, just so in case somebody drops out or just a little bit of support, but yeah.
So that's something to look forward to. I felt last year's was very effective. We had all of our state legislators get that message in front of enough members of the public that it reinforces the message. I feel sometimes it's important to talk one-on-one, but if you do so in front of members of the public, I think it takes on a greater significance. And I think that was one of those things that really helped tip the balance, because when we were going into last year's session, I didn't think we would get any. At the end of it, we got about $900,000 in additional special education funding that I should take that back. I was kind of hopeful we get 150, 200,000 in special, and we got more than not everything that we're spending locally, but certainly a big advance. And I think having students involved, having that level of public engagement really helped push sort of the center of balance in weighing all those difficult choices that legislators have to do. So I found it to be useful. On the Mount Baker Highway Deming area traffic safety planning, you received an email that there's some efforts to restart looking at that. We met with WSDOT probably 5-6 years ago on that. I don't remember the exact time. And I think so. What I was going to do was ask you, Jessica, to and I'm willing to work on it too, or to help with that, to prepare a resolution for our consideration, which will take a bit of research to see what I believe the county council may have prepared one. So if we can coordinate with what else has been done so far, and then prepare a resolution for the board's consideration for support for traffic safety study or work towards that direction at the Deming area of Mount Baker Highway.
Who would the resolution go to?
It would. So that would be the other thing, to see who the other ones sent to. I would believe it'd be the Department of Transportation. So what, but if we can find out who else has joined in on that and what wording they use, so that we're all speaking with the same voice towards the same end. That's why I wasn't prepared to ask for a resolution at this meeting, because I felt like we needed to do that level of research first, but hopefully for next meeting. Another thing I wanted to note was retirement of Steve Jones from 36 years of the Nooksack School Board. When I was first elected as school board member, I looked to both Nooksack and Bellingham school boards for their expertise. They both had long serving school board members, and they both exemplified the level of professionalism that I think that we've benefited from here over the years by having them as sort of the leading lights for us. And I think, when I think of Nooksack School District, I think the district is pulled above its weight because of because of the board. And I think that stability they've had, they've had stable leadership. It's been it appears to be back behind the scenes, but it's been that strong, stable leadership that I think is the ideal for us to. And so if anyone hasn't read, I brought the article from Cascadia Daily. You can peruse that, but on Steve Jones' service there. But I think having that example is a great one for us, and I'd like to acknowledge that here and express thanks. I'll send him a note too, but express thanks from fellow school board members for 36 years. got me beat by a lot. Mount Baker football, I think, you, as students, you can speak to that better than I can, but in my talking with students, it's been a big boost for school spirit.
Yeah, I'd say that's nice.
That I see, that there seems to be that pride that it's been nice for not just the team, but for everyone.
I've definitely heard a lot more people looking at that and, recognizing it. It's definitely a great boost in morale.
I'd say definitely just because like I've gone to every single home game and some away games because my sister's in the band. There's just like a different kind of energy, especially in the student section where it's like you get a win and it's like, wow, oh my gosh, it's just really like emotional. It's really exciting. It's like you can feel like the atmosphere just like surge and like excitement and like Baker pride, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And lastly, I wanted to recognize our fellow board member, Jason Bloodgood, who is not here tonight because he's in his day job. He's serving as many hours as he can keep his eyelids propped up during the day with our neighboring county, which has really been hit hard with flooding. And so, I think that I think as citizens of Northwest Washington, we're fortunate to have people like that with the skills and the energy to do that. Next up is the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Superintendent informational items. So
Yes.
did you have?
I do have a few. Let me put these up here again. So in front of you, with your papers today, I did give you an updated copy of the annual calendar. And the main change here is just the order of some of the presentations that are going to come between now and the end of the school year. At WASDA, we talked a little bit about how it might be more efficient and helpful to have the building principals do their presentation to the board before you go to their buildings. So that way you get that preview, that information about what to expect. And then when we're at the buildings, we don't have to spend time doing that. We can just get out there and see the work. And so that's the main change. There are a few other little tweaks that were made just with the types of presentations. But and then once we get our strategic plan done, I did go to the session at WASDA just about thinking about how the board calendar can complement the strategic plan. And so I've got some good ideas for that one.
That the Sumner School District one.
The other thing I just want to let you know is that the district is starting to look at what we need to do for water adjudication, just like everybody else in the county. We have working with Shannon Richardson and her team on that. I met with a lawyer that the district lawyer had recommended that school districts work with. And so I was on a Zoom with Bellingham and Meridian, Blaine, and Linden were also present. So just getting information, legal advice around how to proceed with this. And I have a clearer picture now of what that process will look like. Haven't had a chance to catch up with Shannon about that yet. But I believe we have 4 water sources that we'll have to make claims for. And so we'll be looking at that. We have until May to get it done. And then that's just establishing the claim. And then after that, up to 3 years to provide evidence for the claim. So I'm getting a fast track education on water adjudication. In the consent agenda, there was a contract with RMC Architects specific to the high school's woodshop project. And I just want to call that out that that is a project that is continuing, and we're doing that entirely through donated funds. So in a little bit, you'll be hearing about the capital projects update. And so we're not using capital projects for this, but Principal Durand has been working really hard to come up with a plan that he's going to be securing donations and making this project come to life. So we're in the beginning stages, and my hope is that once the architects do their initial work, we'll have some some drawings or pictures or just things that we can show you exactly how this will come about once money is there. And it will also help fundraise a little bit once we can show folks what we're aiming for. Any thoughts or questions on that before I?
I think so, because we're going to talk about that more. Right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I really appreciated about going to WASDA was getting more information about strategic planning and really listening to how other districts have done it. And so even I provided the board with an overview of how I hope to do this plan, and I've now revised that a little bit based on that learning. And so I want to just give you a little bit of an update of where we're headed. In your packets, you have a page that has this diagram on it, and it really gives some more details about the 3 groups that will be driving this work. Yourselves, the school board, the steering team that I'll talk about in just a moment, and the core planning team. And so those 3 groups are going to do their work based off of what we hear from the community through the community survey and then some community listening sessions that will happen in January. And of course, student data. What are we learning from what students are able to do and what they're not able to do, what they want, what they don't want, that sort of thing. The steering team is going to be 4 meetings, and I'm very appreciative to the Kalama School District Superintendent. So he had a session that a couple of us went to, and he was talking about with his steering team, he had 75 people in the room for this, which blew my mind a little bit because I was anticipating having about 18 people. That was kind of what I was thinking. And so I met with him by Zoom last week, and he very graciously walked me through his process, how he facilitated that. And the reason why he opened that process up to as many people as he did was, especially in small communities, community voice matters. And we need to make sure that we are reaching enough people so that when we get this plan done, they see themselves in it and they agree with it as we move forward. So even though we're going to be doing some very intentional invites to the steering team, it will be open to all interested people in our community. So we'll get more information out about that in the community newsletter that's going out next week. I also would like to advertise these as special board meetings so that the entire board can attend if you're interested. I know we talked about maybe 1 or 2 at our last meeting, and that's something that if we advertise it correctly, it wouldn't be a problem if everybody came.
So
No, it sounds good.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Curious how that meeting gets managed. I'm sure there's a strategy there to make it productive.
Yeah, it's breaking folks up into groups, and
Okay.
it's very structured in terms of, there's a presentation I'm envisioning doing at the high school library, and we've got enough space. And so it's giving folks opportunities to talk with each other and get to know each other. But then the purpose of that steering team is going to look at all of that community feedback and start breaking it down into what's important to the Mount Baker community, what are some themes, and then start taking that into developing core values and goal areas and metrics and outcomes that we want to use.
Right. So who's part of that process of the filtering down of that data? And
the people who show up to this
They're
meeting
part of
will
that
have
too.
very specific tasks for them to do, kind
Okay.
of structured talk protocols. So they'll have the information in front of them, they'll have time to review it, and then time to talk. And then we'll have team leaders at each building that'll help report that out. So it was a true gift that the Kalama superintendent gave us, just in terms of, he even gave me the slides that he uses. So it's a clear path that I can clearly see. And Bridget Rossman and I have been meeting a couple times now to just really talk through the logistics of what that might look like here in Mount Baker.
Okay.
So my goal is to get invites out to, we have a list of about 60 community members, staff members. We want at least, we're hoping 15 to 20 students that will also come. So I'll be talking with the students about making sure we've got a good group represented there. So we'll get the dates out to everybody so people can, say, yes, I'm available, no, I'm not. But those meetings will be in February and March, 4 meetings, 90 minutes each. And we should end with some really good information that then the core planning team and the instructional planning team can take that information and start developing a plan with. So In your packet, you'll also, on the back side of the paper that has that diagram, you'll see this schedule. And so that details a little bit more about when the meetings are and who's doing what. I'm gonna open up a few documents here. I think it was back in September, I gave you a memo that looked like this, that had just information about the overview process. And so based again on the learning that I've done, that has been updated. And so I shared this with Tammy and with the board docs, just so anybody else can take a closer look at that as well. The process schedule is the document that is pictured on the screen there. And then I wanted to highlight, we are making progress in terms of the outcomes and the products that I said the board would be responsible for this fall. And so one of the first products that we created were the purpose and principles of the strategic plan. And so this was something that we worked on over a couple different meetings. And this will be shared with the other teams that will be working on the plan. And then at our last meeting it was over a month ago, at the beginning of November, we spent a good hour going around and talking about the current plan, its strengths, its needs, what worked, what didn't. And so with the help of a little bit of ChatGPT, I was taking a lot of notes around what was said. I re-listened to parts of that meeting even this afternoon. And there were 3 themes that I think came out of your feedback. The first one is that there is a lack of clear metrics and systems for monitoring progress. That came out loud and clear across every single goal area that we currently have. You said we don't know how to measure what matters. And so we need a more disciplined, data-informed strategic plan. So that's one of the goals that we need to make sure or problems we meet with this new plan. The next is a need for a stronger alignment between goals, strategies, and outcomes. So if we don't, we need coherence to ensure that the things that we're doing, that we say we're going to do, actually happen, and you know whether or not that's true. And then the third is a desire for more authentic engagement and communication with stakeholders. You want two-way communication. We've had success in the past. Transparency is really important, and we need to continue with that and make sure that we have meaningful channels for students, families, staff, and community voice. So those were the themes. And then remember, we also talked about problem statements, and again, further defining what our needs are. And so I just want to read these to you quickly and get some feedback. Do you feel like this represents what our discussion was last time? Our strategic plan needs clear benchmarks, indicators, and data sources because we must be able to monitor progress, understand impact, and make informed adjustments to our goals. That was the one that when I said I was going to take everything that Danielle, you had been talking about, that's the summary of what I heard you say. Yes. In some of your comments. Our students need measurable and clearly defined support for mental health, belonging, and school culture because vague goals and limited data make it hard to address persistent issues like bullying and inequitable experiences. Our instructional staff and leadership teams need a defined framework for using data and continuous cycles of inquiry because academic progress has slipped and we lack consistent systems for improvement. That was a hard one for me because our teachers are working really hard and our students are working really hard. And I don't want that to sound like we're not recognizing that hard work, but we can do better and we want to do better. Our communication systems need clear measures of reach and effectiveness because we don't currently know who's receiving district information or how well our messages are understood. And our facilities and operational work need clear metrics and timelines because broad statements about being fiscally responsible when improving safety are not measurable or actionable.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you really captured our
Nailed it.
thoughts.
That's what I was thinking. I'm excited about that. I think that's honest. It's a little painful, but it's honest. The only thing that I think we talked about after with our principals was the idea of building in resiliency or thinking about that for students. So I don't know where that fits in there, but that seemed to be the one thing that, you know, they said that the principal said that if they could wish one thing for students to be resilient and sticking in through. So, yeah. So,
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, because I think, you know, that was definitely part of our thinking.
yeah.
Put that in there.
But what I like about this is it's not a boilerplate, right? You actually took our information and built that into it. Seems specific for our students.
I won't go over it, but right now, but in your packets, I have more detailed summaries of the conversation when we went around and talked about each goal area individually. So that was what was used to develop this. My hope is that by the time we end, in June, when we're ready to adopt the new strategic plan, we can test it against this. Were we successful in meeting these needs?
Now is this a much more aggressive and sooner date than what you had previously thought?
No.
It felt like it was going to be taking a long time, but this isn't that far away. Okay, maybe it was further when we were talking about that, but now it's.
Yeah,
When
and
it comes
I
fast.
still want to put out there that, I mean, if there are some major things that come up, we might need to push this timeline out, but I've taken this timeline and shared it with a couple other people who do this work, and they're like, yeah, that's doable
Okay.
if you stay on track.
Right.
I just want to acknowledge that the work of leading strategic planning is something that people pay consultants to do as full-time work. And Jessica is taking this on as a part of her work as superintendent, and it's a heavy lift. And I'm just very appreciative of that, and the research that you've been doing to reach out to other districts and find out what you need to learn and know to lead us as best as possible through this process, while also not costing the district the money to hire those kinds of consultants, which a lot of districts use to get through something like this. It's noted and appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
I also,
I'm not alone in it. I'm using my team, I'm using the people around me, so we're all in it.
well, I also wanted to note that you're modeling effective use of artificial intelligence, which I think is important as an organization for us to see the benefits and how you know, it's hard to make it effective. I mean, it's easy to make it off the rails, but effectively using it to come up to save time and to come up with a document that captures what we are trying to express.
Thank you.
And I like thank you for changing the school calendar or the board calendar. One of the things the student reps talked about at WASO was getting invited to school visits. And I like the idea of that, if, you know, coming into the, you know, walking around.
They can give the tour.
Yeah, there's that too. So incorporating you guys into that would be really nice thing too, so.
Yeah, we'll make sure you're both invited, and if you can't miss class, that's totally okay too.
Yes, yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think, you know, I forgot that on our last item, but and I think it's still going that the WASDA has been sponsoring statewide student reps Zoom meetings. So you can do them from your own home or school district, but you get a chance to meet the rest of the student reps throughout the state. So that's and a period like once a month. I don't know the exact times, but maybe you've already looked into it.
Yeah, thanks from WASDA.
From WASDA, but it is once a month. We are looking into doing it. Yeah.
Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm sure you know more about it than I do.
And that's all that I have.
So that's, yeah, well, thank you. I think that's really great progress on the, and I think incorporating some of those approaches that by reaching out to other districts will help us in this process. They really make a lot of sense. The next up is the finance, facilities and operations. So starting with the monthly finance report. And so that also includes the year-end report. I will say, I read through all the documents and I'm very impressed with the level of both the level of work that went into it, but the clear presentation. But well,
I'm gonna invite Katana to come up and join me, and then Ian Linterman, our student services director, is also here, and he won't be part of the presentation as much, but if there are questions specific to special education and the number of federal grants, he's here to give as best answers as he can. And if there's anything we can't answer today, of course, we're gonna be able to find answers for you in the near future. Okay. So let me go ahead and get this going for us. We can do whichever you want. Okay. Will you put the finance report up first?
So I'd also like to welcome Gabriella and Lita. Saying that right? It's wonderful to have you both here. It's very exciting. Right, to get up on the screen there. It's okay. Guess I can start by saying that we finally closed out the fiscal year, the 24-25 fiscal year. So that is a relief. Took 3 months to do so, but apparently that's common.
I've done, I think, 3 PowerPoint presentations in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and each one worked without a hitch. It mystified me why that would happen.
So that's the strategic plan one. It would have been, I think it should do the finance reports. It should already be on the report docs. Yes. Oh, it must not have. Here, let me find it. Okay, I think I got it. Okay.
That looks right. I haven't. Okay, as I mentioned, we closed out the 24-25 fiscal year with an ending fund balance of 1.8 million, which is quite a bit higher than we anticipated. We're actually at 5.5% fund balance, so not to get too excited about that, but
Right.
that is
Well, it's a
that's
good
very-
number to
That's
see.
very exciting. We haven't seen that number for a while, so we're excited about that. Enrollment, however, is down, as we all know. Our annual average enrollment is 1,440, with a total enrollment of 1,498, which includes our Running Start and Open Doors. And this is well below our budgeted enrollment of 1,520. The number does comparatively 1,498 is not that much lower than 1,520, but our increase is actually in Running Start, which doesn't really help us financially. We only get about 7% of that. So the decrease is in kindergarten, as we knew, and then we are losing some enrollment at the secondary level.
I had one quick, you gave figures for the basic ed allotment, non-special ed, non-CTE, it's general, per student that, associated with the enrollment drop. But at what point do you incorporate the impact of the drop of enrollment on our educational programs levy collection? My understanding it's a year's delay. But how does that get incorporated into budget projections?
I'm not sure I know how to answer that
Okay,
question.
well, another meeting then. It's not something that you've got a lot of months of development, a few months of budget development. And we've.
Thing I'd be interested in, just as a data point, is maybe our enrollment over the past 5 years compared with Meridian, Nooksack, and Blaine, just to see if we see similar trends, and if there's some anomalies, ask some questions about why that might be different.
Enrollment is definitely dropping everywhere, but we can certainly show a comparison just on a local community.
Local,
Yeah.
smaller.
So our actual FTE, which is for the month of November, is 1,428, and that reflects a decline from last month of 17 FTE. Comparison, November enrollment for 24-25 was 1,511, showing a decrease certainly over the year.
The other question I had is that 80 at kindergarten, is that anomaly we've seen before in terms of variations from one year to the next? I think about our bigger classes, right? Like I think we have a really big 9th grade and 11th grade classes. So I know that can go up and down quite a bit. I'm just curious if that's a normal type of variable versus.
Well, it certainly wasn't anticipated.
Right.
And so that's one of the things in the next presentation is just talking about the need for maybe looking at some different models for predicting enrollment. And so I have some ideas and some resources around that we'll look at, but that's a definite need.
Yeah, that drop has not been consistent over the years. That's a significant
Yeah,
drop.
just wondering if other school districts have more pre-K than we do. And how that might.
I think at the binding conditions meeting we had, I think it was someone from OSPI had said that kinder was down in many districts. So that wasn't isolated to us, but I think I'll do some research just on county districts and just see what those
Yeah.
numbers were.
And I'm just wondering if there's any research about how pre-K programs or nursery school or whatever it is, but how those might affect enrollment later if it's in that same geographical territory. That factors in somehow. I feel like we have maybe a little bit of a disadvantage on that. And I don't know if anyone's studied that, but.
Okay, I can ask.
Okay, so our general fund, for November, our revenues were 1.5 million and represent 5% of our estimated budget. Our general fund expenditures were 2.7 million. Year-to-date general fund expenditures, 8.2 million, represent 24% of our budgeted appropriations. Additionally, 23 million are currently encumbered and represent 68% of our budgeted appropriations. So we want to keep those numbers tight, not spend. Balances on the other remaining funds, our capital project fund is 2.8. Debt service remains at 1,300 just to keep a few dollars in there. ASB is pretty lucrative, 343,000. So they need to start spending some money.
Nice.
And our transportation vehicle fund sits at 297,000. Timber dollars, we have an update on timber dollars. It's not anything new than what Russ and I had spoke of a month or two ago, but we received 29,000 so far from state forests and 20,942 went to the general fund and 8,148 went to capital projects. So
I did have a conversation with the chief log buyer for Sierra Pacific for Washington State, and he said he was going to send me their schedule for Little Lily, but I haven't received that yet. But I'll
it's a little frustrating not having access to any of that information. We just get money, we don't know where.
It's not. It's up to the purchaser to decide when. The state doesn't have any control over it, but he did tell me that they had figured out their schedule. But
I think log prices are way down.
what's that?
I think log prices are way down right now.
Right.
Just not as interested in bringing it in, which is just one more.
I don't see
hurdle.
construction starting up in anything in the near future.
Yeah.
And then our binding conditions update, we met with ESD and OSPI on November 17th. And as Russ mentioned, it went well. They're satisfied with our progress and encourage us to just continue to monitor our cash flow and expenditures. Very aware that our enrollment is down, and in order to exit our binding conditions in November of 2026, we need to focus on building our unrestricted fund balance, improve our cash balance, and work on our 4-year budget that reflects an ending positive fund balance for each year.
So then we're going to start building these graphs out throughout the year, so you can start seeing comparisons between what we've budgeted for enrollment and what actual enrollment is. And then our 3-year comparison. And in the next presentation, we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail because we are concerned about the trend that you see there, that we're lower than we've been for the last couple of years, and each year enrollment does trend down slightly throughout the year. So if we do continue to go down, that's something we need to be prepared for when it comes to the budget. And then we're also looking at our general fund balance over time. So the dark blue, solid blue line there, that is this current year. And then the dash blue is last year, and then the light gray blue is 2 years ago. Just so we're, you can see similar trends in the highs and lows. And because we are starting to move where we need to for our general fund balance, we started higher and hopefully we'll continue to end higher.
Those high peaks are also when we collect our tax dollars.
What happens in June? That's a big drawdown. Is that just because we have expenses but no revenue, or is there additional expenses happening?
There's additional expenses that happen in June, cash outs, retirement.
Okay.
Stipends,
Okay.
all those happen in June for the most part.
So so that graph doesn't show a dipping, needing an outside
So the
cash influx.
the
but
graph in the next
one-
presentation is going to be about our cash flow.
Oh, okay.
So this is more our savings account, or just our general fund balance, what we have in the bank.
This isn't cash.
It's not cash. And so we're going to show you another slide in a
Okay.
little bit
Yeah.
about why this is so important, because if we don't keep a positive fund balance of at least 5% or higher, is something I'd like us to work toward in the future. Then when the cash goes down, we're not in this much trouble. In school districts, our expenses stay fairly constant month to month. It's the revenue that goes up and down. And so that's the difficult balance that districts everywhere are dealing with. Lots of conversations at the state level around, better models for how schools get money, but that's a conversation for a different night. Anything else to add?
That ends it up. That piece of it anyway. Okay.
Well, we'll transition now to the year-end budget report, where we'll give a little bit more context to what you just saw as well. And before we get started, I want to frame this conversation with a picture. I did a lot of work trying to think about where we are right now, because it feels good that our fund balance is better than it's been in a long time. But kind of the story I want to share is that we're not at base camp yet. It's not time to get a little too carried away. So, if you think about where Mount Baker's been over the last few years, it's like, being up on an expedition or a hike and we're suddenly slammed by a storm. And so for the last couple of years, visibility has dropped. The trail is narrowed. We can't afford to make any wrong moves because there's just no extra to work with. And so as I've learned about Mount Baker and talked to the people who have been here, this next paragraph, I think, really comes to light, that the team worked to check the gear, to recalibrate routes, to communicate, to keep students safe and at the center of every decision. And so it feels good because the storm feels like it's lightning and the sky is getting brighter. The path is clear. We can see where we're going, but we're not there yet. And so that is really, as we talk about this presentation tonight, I want us to still be cautious, to know that we need steady leadership. And that's not just Gatana and I, it's all of us in how we're making decisions and how we're communicating, so that we continue our descent and we rebuild for where we're headed. So that's my little analogy to get us started. And so this presentation is going to go over the topics that you see. And this is another learning that I had from WASDA, where it was a session around what are the things that the board and the public should be looking at regularly in order to kind of have oversight and really feel confident that we are going in the right direction. So we'll be talking about enrollment, the beginning fund balance, budget alignment, cash sufficiency, and then we're also going to share some of the monitoring tools that Gatana and I use. And if those are tools that you want more information about or want more explanation about, we would welcome conversations along those lines. One of the things that is important to keep in mind that decline in enrollment is not special to Mount Baker. It's happening everywhere. And as you can see from these headlines, just this last fall, there are districts grappling with much more significant enrollment declines than we are. One of the things that Ed has asked me to look at is, okay, these are big districts, that's fine. You know, what are other smaller districts seeing? And so that's some research that I'll be doing. But as I talk to superintendents from across the state, I know as Katana talks with business professionals from across the state, this idea of lower enrollment, it is everywhere, and it has everything to do with declining birth rates. And not a whole lot we can do about that right here, right now. So what we're going to talk about is what do we have control over and where we're headed. It's also important to keep in mind that depending on where you look for your data, you're going to find different numbers. And I think trying to nail down exactly what metric we use for enrollment has been one of the single most frustrating things that I've encountered just in the last few months, because there's so many different ways to look at it. That graph up at the very top with the dark blue bars, that's a snip from the OSPI report card website. And they are counting students that we don't count, because when we're looking at student numbers, we're looking at the numbers of students who actually generate revenue for the district. And so there's it's actually a question that I want to dig into a little bit more, because Ian was also sharing that there's some discrepancies in the special education numbers and what you see in that report card compared to the numbers we're working with. And when we know that the public is going to this website, that's concerning to me, because I want to make sure we're talking about the same numbers. So the graph there is just a comparison. The orange line is what you see on the report card. The blue line are the numbers that we work with. And so when we're talking about numbers throughout this presentation, those are the ones that we're using. The state gives us about $10,743 for each general education full-time equivalent student. And so when Katana said that the Running Start students, we only get about 7% of the state revenue for that, that's 7% of that 10,000 number. So when the budget that was passed back in July was created, that was based on a number of 1,520 students. And so as of November, we're at 1,498. When we receive our January apportionment payment, they're going to make that adjustment. So the money that we've been getting thus far has been based off of what was in our budget. In January, they're going to adjust that down. And so we're anticipating a revenue loss of about $300,000. And then continued enrollment decline would mean that we get less money. I can't remember exactly when I think it's April when they readjust it again. And so that revenue would go down again.
And that's just the state apportionment. There's also a deduction related to the taxes, the levy money too, right? Based on how much we can collect per
I mean, the
household.
real estate.
Yeah.
But that one is not a mid-year drop. That's it's based on, and that's what I was asking earlier, when that fits into the budget. But the county figures what our tax revenue is going to be for the next year prior to the beginning of that year. So we once they give us that figure should not change unless people don't pay their taxes. And then we, but in general, that's the number we're working off of.
Now I understand your question. So we'll find your original question. So we'll find
But it will affect an enrollment drop. Then there's a lag. It affects your collections 1 year late. But I just didn't know what I didn't understand from the mechanics of it when that change happens.
We'll find out. Okay, so like we've already discussed, kinder enrollment, we started the year 20 students fewer than we thought were going to be in our classrooms. And then since September in grades 7 through 12, we've seen a decline of 21 students. And that was something when I presented this to the principals last week, I asked Principal Duran to do a little bit of research around, well, who are those 21 kids? What do we know about them? So we're still working on some of the information, but I can tell you that of those 21, 8 of them have barely attended. It's kind of how he described them. So they're not students that had been here last year. They maybe came for a day or two at the beginning of the year and have since left or they're not with us anymore. 6 of them, he's labeling them as BECA students. So the BECA bill is the law around school attendance. And when students aren't attending, we start BECA proceedings with them. And so that is our way of saying it's not okay to just not come to school. We're going to pursue you and find out what's going on and work with you and your parents and the court system if needed in order to develop a plan to get you back into school. 8 of the students are what I could identify as clearly having transferred to schools in our area. There's certainly, and then some of the students who have left, it's, you know, they've moved to Pennsylvania or they moved to Tennessee or Des Moines. I mean, so clearly a family move, not just I'm choicing to another district in the area. So those are some of the details that we're starting to dive into and pay attention to where our students are going and what their needs are. And then this is that graph from the other report where as we plan for the future, there are going to be things that we have control over and there are things that we won't. And so if the trend is that we're going to be a smaller school district, we need to start planning with a mindset, okay, we can be a smaller school district, but we can still be great and we can still do great things. And so what does that look like and how does that feel and how do we plan around that? In some ways, maybe the strategic planning process is the perfect time to be doing it because we can start building some of that, those ideas in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that included in here because we've been hit in the past when we didn't do that thinking. Well, we thought we'd be going like this and then, and by recognizing trends and planning for them, we can, you know, for our programs, for all of those sorts of things, we can plan to keep them in the best shape we can. When we plan ahead.
Yeah, I'd be surprised that we have more students than we were anticipating than less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get done.
This is just a snapshot of our fund balance. The budgeted beginning fund balance was 1.2 million. As I mentioned, we started the year off with 1.867. So that is very beneficial with that shortage of enrollment. We'll be able to use the higher fund balance to make up for the enrollment. The situation highlights the need for maintaining a minimum fund balance. It also points us toward making more conservative enrollment projections and adjusting our budget and staff plans for the upcoming school years. And
then even though that's where things currently stand, that's going to change once we see what our apportionment ends up being in January.
And then the oncoming months. And this is just a snapshot of as to whether or not our budget is in alignment. So I ran some numbers. This is a small piece of our cash flow chart that I look at monthly. And as an example, our budgeted amount for certificated salaries were 13.9 million. And as of September, October, November, we are meeting that 25%, which says that we're essentially in alignment as long as we stick to those numbers throughout the rest of the year. So grateful to see that that number isn't higher. That would mean we're overspending on salaries. This is a screenshot of a small portion of the cash flow. This shows our projected expenditures and cash flow each month. Numbers are not actual until the month is passed. The second half of the school year, will be very tight on cash flow. You can see in June and July, numbers are very low, particularly in June, we are negative. So we have to have a plan in place, and essentially that is maintaining staff and costs, limiting any non-essential costs that might happen.
So those numbers that are at the bottom of that chart, I know it's really small. This is pulling them out and showing the month by month what our cash flow is. And I want to give Hannah recognition, because this cash flow, building this cash flow model is no small thing. It took a lot of work. She was working with some outside help that we had, and we now have this tool that helps us project forward in some more accurate ways.
So how, in this chart, what's the interaction between cash flow and fund balance?
I can put those together and get that to you. What I did put on here though is if you were to take our fund balance from last year, it was in June was $227,761, which would not have been enough to cover what we're predicting is coming in June. Now our fund balance is much higher, and we think we will be okay. So we can overlay those and get that to you.
Why is the purchase services in red?
Not for any particular reason.
Okay.
Something I was
While we're on
probably
the
doing, and then I
topic.
snipped that picture and.
Is that something that's, we need to look at? Because I mean, we, often in our board meetings, we approve contracts in our, kind of our consent agenda.
Sure.
Don't really think about it, but I'm just wondering if,
Yeah.
because that's a big number, right? 4.4 million. I guess there's a lot of things that add up, go into that.
Right, and those are contract services. A lot of that is special ed and
Yeah.
any type of personal service contract, and those are typically very high.
Yeah, it seems like that
But I
number
don't know
keeps
why
getting
it's
bigger
red,
and
but
bigger.
They're generally services that could or would be done by an employee in either years past or in other districts, but I think because of both the availability or lack thereof of certain types of services or people, that districts like ours have gone probably more so to contracted services for covering those duties, those required duties, as opposed to having a full-time employee.
Ian, do you have an example or two that you could give for purchase services? The kind of contracted work?
Yes, so we have a behavior technician. So it's an enhanced position that allows support in our learning strategies program, for example. So we have we contract out for someone to come in and provide those services that we're not able to provide on our own.
Yeah.
In the past, we've had OTs we've contracted with through agencies because we were unable to secure an internal OT. Those things are fairly common in rural districts, and there's going to be shortages in school psychologists, SLPs, OTs, physical therapists, predicted in Washington State as well. So I think that's going to be a common theme for other districts as well.
When we talk about using AI, I'm just curious what would happen if you fed all those contracts in there and looked for, what are some things that maybe we could combine or delete, or common themes that we might not just be seeing when we look at them one by one. You never know what could come out of that.
And aren't some of those contracts, I feel like we just looked at one in the last consent agenda. Was it an audiology, or it was a shared position? We were sharing a position between two schools.
Was it for a teacher visually impaired?
Maybe.
Yeah, but-
maybe, but and some of that might mean that we don't have the need for a full-time person. Right, so, but again, still we're contracting a piece of that at a higher rate for the hours that we are using, but it does still save us money
Right.
over hiring someone for hours we don't need.
That and benefits. on
And
top of
benefits,
that.
yeah.
Any other questions on?
I-
the
Cash
cash flow?
efficiency.
And just to emphasize that the cash flow becomes restricted in June because of our relationship to payments we need to make versus how much money we're getting from the state
Correct.
during that time. Yeah, that's not. We don't have control over when things need to get paid versus what kind of money we have coming in.
Exactly.
And we don't get the same amount each month.
We do not.
No.
We do not.
Are you sure?
I feel like we just being a broken record on that is important without that context.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
So back on the theme of carefully maneuvering our way down out of the storm, here are some of the things that we as a leadership team have started talking about. One is a hiring freeze, and this is seems very easy to say. It's very hard to do because there are still a lot of needs, and there's ways that we're needing to make sure that we are using our current staff as efficiently as possible, and that might mean moving people around a little bit. As we work on the budget and the staffing plan for next year, we want to look at, where do we have people currently staffed, and are there ways to kind of be more balanced in where we have people currently assigned. We're also doing a spending pause, and that's very different from a spending freeze because we still have money. We're still running a school district. We're not panicking right now, but we are being very careful on what we're spending and making sure it's for the essential things that our students need to learn and grow. We are doing no overtime or extra time unless it's pre-approved by the executive team. And so principals have already emailed me with a couple of things where they wanted to have like Paris timesheet extra time to get some training with their teachers who they work with. Right now, they're not getting that time. So we're looking at the cost of that and deciding whether or not.
What are the positions that affects the most? You mentioned para, are there other positions?
I would say paras and teachers primarily. There's also some bus monitor type positions that sometimes do some extra time based on student need.
Definitely classified staff, so custodial work, paraeducators, bus drivers. Unfortunately, it's hard to restrict extra time for bus drivers.
Sure.
It's hard to restrict any of it. It all seems like a necessity, but
So more in the classified than the certificated?
certainly.
But principals might pull together like a team of teachers who they want to do some extra planning time with. And if they were to do that, they would need to timesheet it. So it's just making sure that that's not just happening, that we're pulling it back and taking a look at those needs and requests. We had talked over the summer about using timber revenue to support athletics and possibly also support band and choir as well. I do want to recommend that we hold on to that money until enrollment is better aligned with the budget, just so that we make sure that we have the money we need to run the district. The other piece is safety net, and this is something that I was hoping Ian could come and talk a little bit about in terms of how safety net works. And, we're budgeting, hoping for a revenue of about 900,000 with that. Ian and his team are working on running the numbers about whether or not we're going to make that threshold or not. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
At this point, no, I think that covers it if I'm going to present next month.
Okay. Yes.
I'll do a deep
Ian
dive.
will be here in January to talk about this in a little bit more detail, but wasn't sure if you had any initial questions. It actually might help him prepare his presentation too.
Oh, a question. Yeah, I guess on the safety net is just, what are some of the factors that could go into the levels of assurance or lack thereof that we will reach that figure?
So, yeah, so the way safety net works, it's tied to students who have complex needs, and so we provide services that are in excess of what we can manage. And so it's the volume of the number of students that we have that impacts that. So reaching 900,000 might be a challenge this year just based on numbers. There's a lot of factors that I won't go into now that I'll present in January about. But getting to 700 or 800 is our minimum goal. But those are all impacted by costs, and so it could be higher, it could be lower. But our estimates I'm shooting for are at least 700,000 this year.
So there's this difficult balance of us saying, well, there's no overtime, there's no extra time, there's no extra spending, but we still have to meet that $900,000 that we budgeted for in order to receive it. So it's a kind of a catch-22, if you will. A very delicate situation.
The funding source, big chunk is a grant?
Safety net's not a grant, it's a pool of funds that are held by the state that school districts can access. But we do have to complete grants or form packages through the state to apply for those funds. So technically, you're right, it's just different than a grant that I'm used to writing every year. Yeah.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we've not budgeted for safety net in the past.
By history, we used to not budget for safety net. We used to not get that much as well. In the past, it would be anywhere between 150 and 300,000, but we have more complexity, more needs that we have to address, hence the number increasing.
Did the recent legislation have any impact on that number increasing? Or that?
You mean the budget from last year?
Well, the most recent legislative session that we had, was that a factor in that number increasing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things for the town hall session, that when we were talking with the parent organizers for that was a question I'd written down, that I want to be able to more clearly speak to what was that increase. Because even though we might not be getting everything we need, the fact that our legislators did provide, the relief that they did is significant. And so we want to thank them for that. And I'll be more prepared to speak to that with the January presentation.
So I'm just gonna ask this with a lot of straightforward clarity. I'm hearing that we're hoping we can get 700,000 back, but because we've budgeted for 9, we're looking at a potential $200,000 gap. Best case scenario.
That's hopefully worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just, okay,
Which is the danger of budgeting for money that you
have to apply for.
And the grant just opened. So these next 2 months will be our deep dive into what the realistic numbers look like. Like 600, I'm pretty safe we're going to get to.
Okay,
And so it makes me reasonably confident we can get to 7.
but getting to 9.
Getting
is
to 9.
Probably not something that we should count on.
And I'm
But we
being
did this.
conservative. I'm being very cautious. I want to just say, yeah, we're optimistic we're going to get to 9, but I can't with 100% certainty say that.
Okay. That's a good piece of information to have.
Yeah.
What, Ian, what's the balance between, say you budget 900,000? That's, you're hoping to get revenue in, however, if your expenditures that generate safety net are less, then what's the net impact? Because if say you get 700,000 in safety net instead of the 9 you thought, but you only spent 700,000 in expenditures to generate that, then your net is balanced still.
Correct. If we're 700,000 over in costs and we can net, and we have 700,000 that we can claim, then yeah, we are maximizing.
Right.
Yeah, at 100%. That's
So it's a wash in in its impact to the fund balance, if those numbers balance out.
I would say it's a little more complicated.
It's always gonna be.
But but I like that viewpoint. That is the way it works. Yeah.
And is there an advantage to having a higher amount budgeted, like that we have to project more to be able to claim that budge?
I would rather see the opposite. I would rather see a conservative, hey, we're gonna budget 500 and we get 700.
Okay.
So
So we can actually bring in more than we budgeted for. We're not
Mhm.
tied to that prediction.
and I would say we've
Okay.
done that every year.
Hmm.
Every year since I've been a part of doing safety net, it has brought in more than what we've actually budgeted for.
We don't need a budget extension to bring in more revenue, just to spend
More than we-
more expenditure than we
Thank you.
budgeted.
The last three there are work that we have ahead of us in the coming months. We want to do a staffing analysis to reevaluate our current staffing models and the grant funding that we use to pay for different positions. We're going to be negotiating with both PSE and MBEA this spring, and so it's a good opportunity to work with those bargaining units and identify and negotiate any cost savings that we can find. And then we will be bringing back the budget advisory committee. It'll probably be February, March timeframe, where we'll be getting input from the community about what are our priorities and really looking at building the budget from the ground up with those priorities in mind, as well as look at different enrollment projection models for what we set that enrollment number at. And then we just want to run through, so when in board docs, when we do the monthly finance report, there are some tools that we regularly attach to that. And so I'm going to let Gatana talk through 3 of them that would be very helpful for the public or the board or students just wanting to know where we're at with the money.
This is something you should be somewhat familiar with. This is what we provide to you monthly. We're required to report this to OSPI every month, not just because we're in binding conditions, but this is an OSPI monthly report. It's generated by our district accounting software and compares our actual spending and commitments against the budget, showing the status of expenditures and salaries. This is a mandated report, as I mentioned, and helps us monitor our fiscal health. And it's essentially a snapshot in time, however. So this changes, this would change every day, depending on what data we're inputting into the system. So I ran this report before we had our local deposits in, and it was very scary for me. So it's important to have all of our data in when we're providing these particular reports.
And the screenshot that's on the screen here is actually from August.
Yes.
So,
that's not right.
yeah. So again, every month's going to be different.
So for those of us that look at these kinds of reports, Katrina, what would be like a red flag or a green flag for you? Like when you're looking at this, what are you looking for to be concerned about or looking for to go, okay, that looks like it's supposed to?
I guess this isn't a report that I would be, after being here for 5 months, I now know that this shouldn't be scary because I know it's going to change. I know what impacts the numbers on this report a little bit more than I did 5 months ago. So I don't think this would be a good, I suppose if revenue was extremely low and expenditures were extremely high, but again, I'm looking at our cash flow and our projections. So I have an understanding of what those numbers should look like. I know what is coming in through our county treasurer's report and then our apportionment every month. So I wouldn't say that this is a useful tool necessarily for the public. This is more of a report that might be useful to you folks and then OSPI as well. So,
okay.
And then in comparison, this is our trial balance. So this is essentially cash on hand for each fund. This is an internal report. So this is more of a something I look at, and it would scare me if numbers were, this is our cash. This is our cash in the bank. So this gets compared to the county treasurer's report every month and reconciled, and it serves as an internal control for auditing purposes. So super important. We'll likely have an audit coming up in the next year, in the next couple months here. We don't have a date for that yet, but they will be looking at our trial balances and making sure that we are matching these up with the county treasurer's report. And then the last one is our monthly finance report, which is what they presented this evening. And the three of these really just allow us to have more of a narrative for anyone who's listening, show graphs, enrollment, fund balances, projections, expenditures, update on binding conditions, and certainly if there's anything else you all want to see, don't hesitate to let us know. We can provide that information as well.
I think we can work as hard as humanly possible to tighten our belts and to be as efficient as possible, but the fact remains we're still not getting what we need from the state. The picture on the right is an infographic that I think Brian created last year, kind of looking at the gaps in state funding. We weren't able to find that exact document, so I just pulled out and created graphs for our most current year in terms of special education, our materials, supplies, operating costs, and then transportation. And you can see that we're still experiencing some significant gaps in what our actual, so our actual costs are in the red, and this what we're getting from the state is in the gray.
So is this in a condition that we can use it for the figures for the town hall? Good.
Yeah. This is when we spoke.
You're ahead of the game then.
Well, you asked me for it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but you.
Another big piece that is important to call out is what the state calls the prototypical staffing model. And the kind of joke in education is what they think is prototypical is not typical at all in terms of how much we're actually staffing. So the first red rectangle there, so the 93, the 6, and the 25, those are the numbers of certificated staff, of administrative staff, and classified staff that the state thinks we need.
And fund us.
And fund us for. And when they fund us for that 93, and so we'll just take the certificated staff there, we receive about $71,000 times 93. That's what we get from the state for our certificated staff. We, however, have 107 certificated staff, and our average base salary is $95,000. So not only are they not recognizing the number of people that are needed, the dollar amount that's coming for each of those people is far below what our contracted salaries are at. And the same is true for those other groups. I think it's really interesting when you look at classified staff, they're saying a district our size only needs 25. That includes all of our parapros, our secretaries, our bus drivers.
25?
Food service.
Well, they have to wear lots of hats.
Yeah.
For the state.
Yeah.
You could be cooking lunch while you're
Drive the
driving to
bus.
school.
So, I mean, it looks like we're incredibly out of balance there with our 82. But when you think about all the groups that go into making a district run, we need more than 25.
How much of an impact is it that we're spread out in, essentially 4 different sites versus centralized, like a Meridian school district, it's all in one? Does that impact that number a lot?
It does. Yeah, and I think that's probably why a few years ago, that idea of, what do we do about Acme? Is that something that we want to look at? I think that's why that was initially looked at. But I think there's, Acme still has 130 some students, we still need, when you think about the teachers who are there, we've got some really large class sizes at Acme. So even if we took those kids to another school, the staffing wouldn't change in terms of what's needed. We might save a little bit money with some classified staff, but I don't think it's the staffing that would change as much as the building costs.
But I think the biggest thing that affects it is the state saves money by putting a typical school staffing model that's not realistic.
Fudging the numbers.
And they say, okay, that's, they've done bits and pieces of improvements over the year. Several years ago, the staffing model would come up to about 1 or 2 junior high counselors for the whole state. If you added all the little percentages, so they'd be at their mileage cost for running around and spending 0.2 of a second at a junior high before they went to the next junior high and spent 0.3 of a second would be quite expensive. So some of these assumptions are absolutely ludicrous.
And the
And
formulas.
so I think that's where a lot of our work for WASDA and advocating is in really focusing on the prototypical school model and trying to make it actually line up with reality, not just, getting to the point where one size prototypical school model fits, and then looking at, so rural schools have a different, an additional need in addition to a school model that's designed around a suburban school, which is basically what you're looking at here. It's nowhere near adequate for a suburban school.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge, at least in the WASDA sessions that I've been to, some school districts are using this in some fashion. More than just understanding where the budget's coming from, but they are using that in some way and to decide staffing levels.
Yeah, it's
right?
building out your staffing. At the last business managers class I went to, there are 2 business managers there from Pasco, and they shared a tool that they use for building their budget and their staffing model. This is very a typical staffing model, but this one is huge, and it's based on enrollment and predictions, and I'm working on it, but it's crazy large, but it's that's what they use to, especially moving forward with our lower enrollment and our being underfunded. They're utilizing that a lot more.
They're applying factors to things to adjust it, but they are using it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that shortfall between what the state provides and what we're actually having to pay, that gap gets covered by our levy. So that means that our local tax dollars that are raised through levy are going to pay this gap in coverage from the state, which disproportionately impacts communities like ours that there isn't as much wealth to cover that. So wealthy districts, they might be facing this gap, but there are more opportunities.
But yeah, I don't think, it doesn't quite work that way, because you're limited to a little bit over $3,000 per student, regardless of how wealthy your district. It may take several dollars per thousand in some districts to achieve that 3,000. It may take 10 cents in Mercer Island, but per thousand. But it's still, you're still limited. I think Seattle gets a little higher than 3,000 that they're allowed to collect per student, but you're still limited by that state limitation on the per student amount. So that sort of, in some ways, equalizes between districts. It doesn't entirely, but we're not in the situation that we were maybe 30 more years ago, where it really made a lot of difference. How much you could generate in one community versus another. Because after the McCleary fix, that limited the amount we could collect per student. That was a new change with the McCleary fix. But it makes it very important to get the, not only get the typical staffing model correct, but keep it up with inflation. Once the state does something, they figure it's fixed.
Not yet, but we'll keep advocating for it. So looking ahead, in terms of our budget timeline, what we're doing right now is a budget accountability update. We're talking about our budget versus actuals, enrollment, revenue updates. Coming up in January and February, we're going to do more work with our staffing and grant analysis. In February is when we hope to kick off the 26-27 budget development that will include the advisory committee workshop. Really asking people to help us set the priorities. And then from March to June, probably more than likely be 1 or 2 more committee meetings. We're going to look at if there is anything that comes out of this legislative session or not, budget development with our buildings and departments, staffing meetings, and then wrapping up in June or July with the actual budget hearing. So we'll have a more detailed budget calendar coming up, but this is an overview of what to expect. And then just want to wrap up that I really do think we're headed in the right direction. That the celebrations are real and that we've made progress, but we need to stay disciplined and continue to monitor what's going on and also being able to respond to changing needs. And then one thing that, as I was thinking about this analogy of a base camp, we really would need to decide, what does that base camp look like? If we say we've arrived, we're in a healthy place, we're in a good place. What does that look like? What does that sound like? And I know that our strategic planning process will help us do that. And we'll have that goal and we'll work toward it and we'll know when we've arrived. And then we make more goals and keep on going.
The way I think about it is, what kind of problems and challenges do we want at that point?
Mm-hmm.
We want challenges, we just want the right kinds of challenges.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
no, I think for me, I'm always thinking, okay, what are the attaching dollar figures to the threats that the portions of the budget that we may lose mid-year. And, and I think that's what you're looking at too. So as we communicate on those so that the board has kind of a running tally of what those balls in the air might be. And this is really great. I mean, we went to a lot of work to prepare it. I think it's got the right level of detail. So the detail's there, but it's also relatively easy to understand. And so I realize it, and I really appreciate that. Do you two have questions?
No.
Some of this, as you get the material ahead of time, you'll have a chance to look it through, and it's, a lot of it's some of it will be confusing to me, and I've been on the board for 26 years, so I don't expect you to catch it all right at the beginning. But as you go through it, and even if you think a question is what people might consider a dumb question, you ask it to one of us first, or to Superintendent Shanks, and if you feel like you want to do that, to help you understand it. But I think it's important that you get a grasp of what the material we're covering is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up is capital projects update.
This one will be a little bit shorter. But good information. So Shannon Richardson, our operations director, and we talk about wearing lots of hats. Shannon wears lots of hats, and she's been working really hard at learning this capital projects world. And so we're gonna give you an overview of where we're at. There's been a lot of work going on in the last couple months, a lot more work ahead of us, but I think we have some good celebrations here to share as well. This is a quote that I believe John F. Kennedy gave at one of his State of the Union addresses back in the 60s, around when the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. And when I think about capital projects and what our current reality is versus ideal state, I want to move us to a place where we are being able to make decisions and make plans before the crises happen. We can be proactive instead of reactive. And so the current reality right now is that we do have many aging facilities and a lot of complex repair needs. We have an incredibly hard team of 3 maintenance staff who, when you think about all the cuts over the last number of years, you know, the square footage of the district hasn't gone down, but our maintenance staff has. And so I want to thank them for how hard they work to keep up with the needs. We are more recently working with Tex Laddish from ESD, works with ESD 189, but his construction services group is through ESD 112. And he has been an incredible support the last couple months, just helping us learn the ropes in terms of how you get things done with facilities and grants. The ideal state that I want to work us toward is to have a comprehensive needs plan to make proactive decisions about scheduled repairs and upgrades, and also budget responsibly so we can respond to unexpected repairs or costs. We're going to talk about some unexpected repairs that we're currently have in the works. And luckily we found some money from the state that we're going to be able to get that done. And then we also need a preventative maintenance plan that includes clarity about the role of how custodians are also, I mean, our custodians work incredibly hard as well, but how do we define their roles in terms of helping us with preventative maintenance along with our maintenance team? So we're going to talk just a little bit of good background on the capital projects levy. We'll talk about some of our current projects and the capital project fund budget, and then how we're using grants right now to maximize our options. I love this picture that I think Brian Fraser told me he took this. I love just the hope that this picture imparts in terms of where we're headed. Okay, so as a review, in 2024, there's a $12 million capital project levy that was passed, and this levy collects $2 million each year through the year 2030. The current balance of our capital project fund is 2.6 million, and which is great, but there's very strict rules about what we can do with that money. And so based on the resolution that the school board passed prior to the levy being voted on by our community, school safety, security, facilities, HVAC needs, technology, those are the things that we can use them on. We cannot use them for people to pay, say we need a new para, let's use capital projects. We can't do that. So we have to make sure that it meets those needs and requirements. In July, when the board passed the budget, this was a slide that was shared around revenues and expected expenditures. But a budget is a plan, and sometimes plans change. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, because some of the things that you see on there for expenditures, we're not planning to do those projects the same way. There are also things that were on that list originally that we have now found as needs, and we've added them to the list. So we're still in a good place in terms of the positive positive balance for this fund, but we are intending to use the money a little bit differently. And I'll let Shannon talk about some of our recent wins.
So recently we had 2 new heaters installed over at Harmony Elementary. The heaters that were in there were not functioning. So Lynn and Chief Meadow installed 2 new heaters in room 13 and 14, and they heat well. Teachers are still getting used to them, I think. They heat so well, usually they turn them off actually once the kiddos are there, 'cause the room's pretty warm, so that's good news.
Good. There's no stars.
Um, we did over this summer, we had Valley Electric replace all of the stadium light. And so if you went to any home sporting events, football games, I don't know if you noticed, but they were brighter. And just actually, sorry to back up to that one, our lights that were there prior were actually at the end of their useful life, and we tried to replace bulbs, and they were no longer functional. So, and it becomes a safety issue, obviously, when we have kids out there playing sports, so they have to be able to see. On the left, actually, no, both of these, actually, no, sorry, there's been, the 800 building has had a lot of work. So on the left, you can see there are new blinds from the exterior. And in addition, there's new exterior lighting as well, which it's really nice when you know are walking out there and it's dark out. It's illuminated very nicely, and then just an internal picture of the blinds in the 800 building.
And these were also purchased with kind of heating in mind, because these are old windows that need to be replaced eventually. That is on the project list, but when it is really hot, these should be do a better job of reflecting light and heat than in the past.
And at this price, I think the blinds are much more cost effective than the window replacement. We found the payout, the number of years it would take to pay for thermal pane windows at Acme School was several hundred years. But we got a grant, an energy efficiency grant to pay for it. So our out-of-pocket cost was nothing. So we jumped on it. But I think the blinds are for 31,000. That's going to be a much shorter payback period. And it also provides that level of student comfort that you would actually probably better for that amount of money than Windows would.
So I don't know the exact date that the district got the Distressed Schools Grant for Acme modernization. Two of the projects that were intended with that grant were the annex flooring and then the placement of the portable there at Acme. That portable has been in storage for a number of years, and it's actually on the agenda as a surplus item later on. We've determined that numbers wise, we don't need that extra classroom space at Acme. There are other more pressing needs that building needs. We reached out to Senator Shoemake and OSPI just to find out, can we modify what we spend that money on? And they both gave us well, we're waiting on the state's blessing. They said as well, yeah, it should work. Just make sure that the senator is okay with it too. She was. So we still need to finalize the change in the grant, but Shannon can talk about what we plan to do.
So we did complete right before school started in August, end of August. We were able to finish the annex flooring. And so there's a couple pictures of what that looks like. The teachers at Acme also were interested in creating an outdoor learning space, possibly with the foundation that's already there that was intended for the portable. So somehow creating a useful space for that. And then also, if you've been to Acme, you'll notice that the ramps and railings and the annex roof, there's repairs that need to be made with those. So hopefully using that money for those projects. Some of them like the ramp project is a little tricky when the students are in school, just because it's a major project and it takes some time. So probably looking at more closer to summer for that. We were able to replace the gym doors at Acme. The ones, I don't know if you noticed those up there, the old ones were wooden and pretty much see-through almost. And definitely not helping keep any sort of heat in. So these ones were installed in October, and they're very nice and should last a really long time. And then again, just another, I think that's a staff break room in the Acme Annex with the new flooring. Oops.
So we have, this is a kind of a list that is not prioritized in any way, shape, or form. But it was a list that Shannon put together when we were applying for a emergency repair grant, which we'll talk about in the next slide. But these are the things that we need to gather some more information about and make sure that the numbers that you see there are accurate and that we have a better grasp of what the actual scope of each of these projects are. And that's what Tex is going to be helping us with over the next couple months. One of the things that, if you think back to the slide on the budget, like what we were thinking about, what was going to be needed for capital projects, the roof of the gym of the 800 building wasn't on that list. And it is leaking very, very bad. It's been leaking there for years. It's gotten a lot worse just over the summer and especially over the last couple weeks. And so we need to do some work to really assess what our current needs are and make sure we've got a complete picture of what our capital projects are and our facilities needs are. And so this is a partial list. You'll see that there are some projects there that don't have numbers because they're still in the works. The fencing for Harmony and Kendall, we did apply for a safety security grant through the state. I've not heard back yet on that, so kind of putting that on hold. We also need to do some work looking at cameras and other safety upgrades that are needed around the district. The shed project for the high school is there, but again, that's going to be outside grants and donations, and we'll get a better picture of the total scope of that project in the next few months as well.
Some of these were already approved, right? The Kendall sprinkler system.
Mm-hmm.
And that work will hopefully also take place in the summer. I don't know if we've talked about that prior.
Okay. And then one that caught my eye is the soccer field repairs. That
Yeah, that's an estimate,
Okay.
and we're still working on that. In fact, on Wednesday of next week, we're meeting with the architect group out of Bellingham that's helping Nooksack Valley with their turf field project. And so we're going to we want to get some help from them, just taking a look at our current athletic facilities and see if they can give us any ideas. Nooksack Valley told us that this architect group really helped them with the grant applications that they received that are helping them with their project. And so that'll be something we talk with them about as well.
Yeah, Jason also had some, maybe you did too, Jason had some conversations with one vendor of turf materials at WASDA.
Yeah.
Which, you never know who to believe, but when you talk to a vendor, but it was a different price range than what Nooksack Valley was looking at. So just, touch base with Jason on that and see if there's something that's worthwhile following up on.
I'll let Shannon talk about this slide. And in the consent agenda, you did see a letter from OSPI awarding us $300,000 for this grant. And Shannon, I can tell you how we're going to spend that.
So yeah, that was really exciting that we were able to get the full amount that we requested. So probably about a month ago, our J-Sport at Kendall, which is part of our HVAC controls, failed. We had tried to limp it along as long as we could, and it became unrepairable. So part of our grant work, we got estimates from a couple different companies, and we were able to get that approved as part of this grant. So that's really exciting. And that work actually started taking place this last Monday. And then the 800 building gym roof, like Jessica mentioned, it's leaking pretty substantially in the northeast corner. And so High Tech will be working with us on that project. Currently, where we're at with that, because we just learned as well on Monday that we received the grant, we're working with CAS Construction also, and we're going to start with testing for asbestos and lead in that space on the roof and then in one of the back rooms, because that will determine how we proceed forward with the work. Obviously, we've got kiddos here, students in school, so we have to be very, very mindful of that. There will be mitigation efforts put in place. We have a plan for if we do find these things. And yeah, so we're really at the very beginning stages of that. Unfortunately, we were going to try and get the company out to test this week, but they're based out of Mount Vernon. And so again, you know, safety first. And so that's not a priority right now for us or for them. So we're just going to hold off until we know everybody's safe.
So the grant was based on the actual cost to do the work?
Yeah.
Fully
So
funded?
yeah, we received 2 different bids for the roof, one from High Tech and one from Axiom Roofing. And so yeah, and then CAS came out and gave us an estimate on repairing the interior. And so yeah, those numbers, you know, are as accurate as we could get, especially the roof is very accurate. And then the interior, again, it just depends on what's found.
Right.
Because it could be maybe a little less, you know, or it's going to be up to that amount.
So the emergency grant, is that small schools modernization grant or is it a separate program?
Separate.
That's good. It's wonderful that we're, so we just, we will receive up to the 300,000 then? Great.
So for our next steps, we also received $27,939. That's a very exact amount from the state for a study and survey plan grant. This is something that districts can periodically apply for. We haven't done it in, I think it's been 5 or 6 years since we've done that. So we're going to do that to help us when you think about that list of projects, we want to use this grant and the work that we get out of it. We'll work with an architecture firm to look at what are those project needs, what are the scope, so that we can prioritize projects and bring to the board suggestions for short-term and long-term planning. And I really envision a presentation where for each of those projects, we have a slide for each one.
Mhm.
We've got pictures of what the need is. We've got, you know, descriptions of what the project is, and then the cost breakdown. And so that's what we need, continued help with text to develop, along with what we learned from this study and survey.
So who does the evaluation?
We have to put out a request for qualifications for an architecture firm.
Yeah.
And so that'll be one of our next steps. We are continuing the work to look for grant opportunities for the artificial turf for the stadium, as well as what we need to do to make our soccer field a better place. As I was driving by it today, it definitely does not have good drainage. So
We could do aquatic sports.
exactly. So we're looking into that. And then we do need a preventative maintenance plan, like I mentioned before, that also includes a plan for our Chromebooks and technology rotations and safety needs. And so we're in the beginning stages of developing those.
When we went to WASDA last year, there was a company, Apollo, that was working on some, not a grant, but some money for projects. Did you guys, were they at this last WASDA? Wasn't there, but do you remember that at all? That was last year when we went with
Yes.
Nick.
Yeah.
We met with those people and there was some
Oh,
discussions
free
around.
pizza people?
Yeah,
I didn't talk to them.
but I thought I remembered that they had some, they were gonna be applying for modernization grant.
Well, that's why I asked, you know, small schools modernization grants are a separate program from this, but they've been funded relatively better for in the probably the past two budget cycles. I don't anticipate them being funded at that level in this year because of much more of a shortfall in the state
Okay.
budget.
I thought they actually had an application in and were waiting for it to get approval, and it was gonna take a couple of years, but it was quite a bit of money.
I'm not sure what the status is.
I'm not aware.
You don't
of
know
that.
anything about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember it vaguely, but I know that the funding didn't get approved. I think at the state level, something did not pass. And so I don't know that whatever the plan was went through.
I think the company was called Apollo.
That was,
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's the case, I'd be curious, talking with those people, if that's accurate or if there is any future potential income from that grant. Make sure we don't miss out on that.
And that's why I'm really glad we have Tex, because he
Yeah.
knows all the ins and outs of those state level grants. And he's already, you know, brought a few forward to us that we probably would have overlooked.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, that was kind of my thinking. That's what I think as a team, having that expertise, you know, you've come a long way. I think you've jumped right into this wholeheartedly, and I appreciate that. But having Tex alongside as an important member of your team gives you that ability to really sort through everything and not take backward steps. So I think as a team, feel really confident in that.
Okay.
Any other questions on the capital projects update?
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have two board action items. They're both surplus resolutions. So one is the portable. So if you want to just speak to the surplus resolutions, particularly the portable.
okay, so the first surplus resolution is just our normal, you know, collection of items throughout the district that are no longer in need or use, and by law, we need to surplus them. The one that's more kind of out of the ordinary is the resolution to surplus the portable. And so this is the Acme portable that is currently being stored. Actually, it says it in the resolution. I want to say Marysville.
Yeah.
And it's a company that kind of deals in portables for school districts across the state, and they've been very gracious in holding onto that portable for us. But I've also made it clear we need to make a plan and do something with it. So I did work with our legal firm just to make sure that we're doing this correctly, because there was some concern. Tex wanted me to make sure that because we're in binding conditions, that didn't affect whether or not we could sell this or not. And so the wording that's there in the resolution came from our law firm. And because under the RCW, because this portable has not been placed on the ground or affixed to the ground, it's not considered real estate. So the sale of this, we could put back into the general fund if we wanted to. The company is estimating that we could probably get between $70,000 to $80,000 for it, depending on the need. But the first step is to get this surplus so that we can put that out there.
Any questions? Yeah, I think it's simply it would be empty space if we went ahead with it. So I think that's the best move.
Is anybody gonna come in to complain?
They might, but I'd be prepared
And
to.
if so, what
Yeah.
would be their complaint?
maybe that we weren't going with it. I think there was a lot of hard work that went into, establishing the grant for that Acme Portable, and just that was a project that was really important. But our needs have changed, and so it's just staying flexible with that and recognizing that this actually could get us some money back.
Right, because we have room at Acme for any kind of program that we might want. If they did.
So I'll take these two resolutions one at a time. First is entertain a motion for Mount Baker Resolution 25-26-2 surplus.
Motion to approve resolution 25-22-26-2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is Mount Baker Resolution 25-26-3, declaration of surplus property portable.
Motion to approve resolution 25-26-3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then, so next is our upcoming events, meeting schedule. And I particularly want to note that our meeting, our second January meeting is January 23rd, which is a Friday at 9 a.m. So it's,
I have a work-related conflict.
yeah,
on
make sure you
Jan-
don't show up here Thursday night
Yeah,
for the second meeting. And I'm the one I mostly has to be reminded of that. I did put it on my calendar already.
I have a work-related conflict on January 8th. I'm expecting I might not.
You have what?
I have I'll be out of town for work on January.
So you will be, you'd be absent?
I'll be absent.
Okay. And then, so next we have an executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session. We'll sign documents first before the executive session. So
We're gonna try to board members for you guys to be contact, but we haven't picked them yet.
All right, Russ. We don't have a meeting on Jan 22nd.